Dr. G.S. Raju's YouTube.
That is our source today. And, it's an amazing resource for actually seeing the sheer complexity of what's going on inside the human body.
It really is, and that's exactly where we're starting. I'm glad we have a visual source to ground us because we are tackling a topic today with a name that, well, it tends to make people's eyes glaze over. It's a real mouthful.
It's a heavy hitter for sure.
Hepaticojejunostomy.
Yeah, even for doctors, that can be a bit of a tongue twister.
It sounds like something from a spelling bee, doesn't it? But here's our promise right at the start. By the end of this deep dive, that word won't just be a jumble of sounds. It's going to represent an incredible piece of biological engineering.
That's the perfect way to put it. It is engineering. We're looking at a very specific kind of surgical reconstruction. We're talking about what happens when the body's original plumbing, fails and surgeons have to build a totally new route.
But the source material, this video transcript we're working from, it doesn't just stop with the surgery. It introduces a pretty big plot twist.
Right. Because when you reroute that plumbing, you fix one problem, but you also create a legacy issue. You're drawing a new map that's incredibly hard for any future doctor to navigate, especially if that patient ever needs a procedure called an ERCP.
So we're really looking at a before and after. We've got the surgery itself, which is just fascinating, and then we have the navigational nightmare of trying to drive a camera through it years later.
It creates this completely new landscape. It's like trying to find an address in a city where somebody's moved all the streets.
Okay, let's get organized so we don't get lost ourselves. We can split this into two parts. First, the surgery. Let's understand the hepaticojejunostomy. What's cut? What gets moved? How do you rewire a liver?
And then part two, the challenge. I will look at that exact scenario where a patient needs an ERCP later and why this new anatomy makes it what the source calls technically challenging.
Okay, let's step into the operating room. Section 1, the surgical anatomy, or Extreme Home Makeover, Digestive Edition.
To really get the renovation, you have to see the original blueprint. So the source starts with normal anatomy.
The factory settings.
Right. And in a normal setup, it's this really elegant gravity-fed system. The liver makes bile, the gallbladder stores it, and these little pipes, the bile ducts, deliver it down into the duodenum.
And the duodenum is just that first little bit of the small intestine.
Exactly. So it's a direct line. Liver, duct, intestine, everything flows downhill. Simple.
But in the cases we're talking about, that line is broken. Maybe there's an injury, a tumor, something is blocking the pipe.
The highway is closed. So the source explains the first big move. Step 1. The gallbladder is removed.
First casualty, it's out of the picture.
Gone. But step 2 is where the map really, really changes. The source says the bile duct is sectioned.
Sectioned, which is a very polite word for it. They cut it.
They cut the main line, sever it. And here's a detail that's so easy to miss but is absolutely critical. The source says the distal end of the bile duct is closed off.
Okay, let's clarify distal. That's the part further away from the liver, right? The end that used to plug into the intestine.
Exactly. So that bottom half of the pipe is sealed shut. It's now a dead end.
So the original exit for bile is just barricaded. No entry. If you're a drop of bile, you hit a wall.
Precisely. So now you have this problem, a liver making bile and an open pipe just hanging there with nowhere to go. You need a detour.
And that's where the jejunum part of the name comes in, the small intestine.
This is the creative part. The surgeon takes a loop of the jejunum, that's the middle part of the small intestine, and sections it.
So we've cut the bile duct, now we're cutting the intestine. This sounds pretty major.
It is. It's major surgery. And this is where they build what's often called a Roux-en-Y. The text explains that one loop of this cut intestine is brought up.
Up towards the liver.
All the way up. They pull this loop of intestine up and connect it directly to that open stump of the bile duct. And that new connection, that's the hepaticojejunostomy.
So if you break down the word, hepatico for liver, jejuno for the jejunum, and stomy for opening.
It's literally a liver-intestine opening. You're just dumping bile straight from the liver into a new intestinal channel.
Okay, that takes care of the bile. The detour is built. But wait, you can't just leave the rest of the intestine disconnected, can you? Food has to go somewhere.
Absolutely not. That's the other part of the Y shape. The source says the other limb, the one coming from the stomach, has to be reconnected.
It calls this a jejunal anastomosis.
Another one of those mouthfuls.
It's a day for them.
And anastomosis is just a connection. So they're just connecting the jejunum back to the jejunum further downstream.
So let me see if I can picture this. You have the bile duct now draining into one arm of a Y, and the other arm of the Y is carrying food from the stomach, And then they meet up and continue down as one pipe.
You've got it. That's the new blueprint. One arm for bile, one for food. They meet in the middle.
So to sum it up, before it was a simple, straight pipe.
Simple.
After the gallbladder's gone, the old exit is sealed off, and bile takes this long, winding detour through its own dedicated channel before it ever meets up with any food.
That is the new map. And for the patient, this works. It solves the crisis. They can eat, they can live.
But there's always a but.
There is always a downstream consequence.
What happens if something goes wrong in that new plumbing years from now?
And that's section 2, the complication.
So the source sets up a scenario. 10 years later, this patient develops a new problem, any stones in their liver or scarring at that new connection. They need their bile ducts looked at.
They need an ERCP, endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography.
I'm not making you say that one twice. But for our listeners, that's the go-to procedure for fixing bile duct problems, isn't it?
It is. Normally, it's a bread and butter procedure. You take a long camera down the throat, find the bile duct opening, and you're in business.
But for this patient, the source gives a very clear warning.
It's like a big red flag in the text. It says, this is going to be a technically challenging ERCP.
Technically challenging? That feels like a massive understatement. Like saying Everest is a bit of a hike.
It's the medical version of good luck with that.
So why? Why is it so hard to get a camera in there?
Well, the source boils it down to 2 big problems: reach and find.
Okay, let's start with reach.
Remember that loop of intestine they brought up to the liver?
Yeah.
Well, the target, that opening, is now much, much further away from the route than it used to be. The endoscope has to travel a much longer, more winding path to get there.
The longer commute.
A significantly longer commute. And these scopes only have so much length. You have to go way past the normal starting point.
And the second hurdle was find.
Right. In normal anatomy, the opening is in a specific place with clear landmarks. It's like finding a famous monument. You know where it is, you know what it looks like.
In here.
Here, the opening is a tiny surgical scar somewhere up a random loop of intestine, maybe hidden by a fold. It's not finding a monument, it's finding a specific manhole cover in a city after an earthquake.
Wow, that is a great image. The map's been shuffled and the street signs are gone.
And you're basically navigating by feel. You have a camera, but you don't really have GPS.
Okay, let's actually take that trip. Section 3. The journey of the endoscope.
Let's trace the path.
The source lists the steps out, almost like a subway map. I think to really feel the difficulty, we have to ride along with the scope.
I like it. Let's do a simulation. You're at the controls.
All right. Leg 1, the familiar route. Scope goes in the mouth. Down the
esophagus, the long tube. So far, so good.
It lands in the stir.
The stomach, big open space. Still standard. You puff in some air to see.
We go through the stomach, out the exit door, which is
The pylorus. The little valve, you nudge the scope through. So
Oh.
far, this is autopilot for the doctor. This is the daily commute.
And then we're in the okay.
The duodenum, first part of the small intestine.
Okay, so esophagus, stomach, pylorus, duodenum. This feels normal.
It is. And in a normal ERCP, you'd stop right here. The bile duct opening is right there on the wall.
But not in our patient.
In our patient, you look at the wall and the door's been bricked up. Remember that distal end was sealed.
The dead end.
Exactly. If you stop here, you failed. You just see a scar. You have to keep going, deeper than you normally would.
Leg 2. The new territory. The source says the scope enters the jejunum anastomosis.
This is the fork in the road. This is that Y intersection we talked about.
So you're in this pink tunnel, and suddenly you see it split. 2 paths.
One path goes down, that's the rest of the intestine. That's called the efferent limb.
Efferent meaning exiting.
Yes. Go that way, you're on a long road to nowhere. You'll find the colon eventually, but you won't find the liver.
And the other path.
The other path goes up. The source really emphasizes this. The scope has to turn and go up toward the liver.
Which is leg 3, the afferent limb.
Efferent meaning it leads towards the target. But now think about the physics of this. This is what makes it so hard.
What do you mean?
You are pushing a long, flexible, floppy tube up a loop of intestine that is designed to push things down.
You're literally fighting against the current.
You're fighting anatomy and physics. The scope wants to coil up in the stomach. You have to torque it, twist it, and gently advance it up this limb without it buckling on you.
It sounds like pushing a wet noodle uphill.
That is an almost perfect description of the challenge. You are trying to transmit force from your hands all the way down 4 feet of tubing to the very tip to make it climb a soft, slippery tunnel.
And all of that is just to get to the right street. You haven't even found the house yet.
Exactly. You're just trying to get up the driveway and hope it's the right one.
The destination. The source says, if you find the opening of the bile duct, that little word, if, is doing a lot of work there.
A lot. Because once you're up that afferent limb, you're looking for that tiny scar, the anastomosis.
What does it even look like on camera?
Oh, it can be so subtle. It might just be a little pucker in the tissue, a tiny pinhole. It doesn't have any of the normal anatomical signposts.
So the doctor is looking for a specific scar pattern from a surgery that could have been 15 years ago.
Yes. And things can grow over it. It might be incredibly small.
But let's say they're a superstar. They've made it up the afferent limb. They've spotted the opening. What's next?
The final move, cannulation. You have to feed a tiny little catheter out of the end of the scope and guide it into that hole.
Threading a needle.
From 4 feet away by remote control. And if you get it in, you inject the dye.
The contrast dye for the X-ray.
Right. And that's the magic moment. The source says this is how you create a cholangiogram.
The roadmap.
Suddenly, on the X-ray screen, the invisible duct system lights up. You can see the branches, you can see the stones, you can finally see the problem.
It's the you are here on the map.
It's the confirmation that you made it through the maze. And only then can you actually begin the therapy.
Wow. When you lay it out like that, step by step, the difficulty is just. It's staggering.
That's the difference between driving to your local shop and running an obstacle course blindfolded.
A normal ERCP is basically go to the duodenum, make a left, and you're there.
Roughly, yeah. The map is standard.
This one is. Go past that, find the secret fork in the road, guess the right path, go uphill against the current, find the secret door, then pick the lock.
And you have to do all of that gently because you could injure the bowel. The walls are thin.
It really puts that phrase technically challenging into perspective. It's not just jargon.
And it connects to this bigger idea in medicine. You know, we think of surgery as a fix, but it's not always that simple.
The fix creates a new reality.
Exactly. The surgery solves the immediate crisis, but it permanently alters the patient's anatomy. It creates this legacy that the next doctor, maybe 10, 20 years down the line, has to figure out.
The doctor doing the ERCP has to be a kind of historian.
They absolutely do. They need to read the old surgical notes. They have to try and get inside the mind of the surgeon from a decade ago. How long did they make this loop? Which way did they turn it?
They need the architectural blueprints before they can even start the work.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that's what a resource like Dr. Raju's video provides. It's a briefing. It's saying, hey, if you see this word on a patient's chart, stop. Prepare yourself. You are going on a journey.
And it's a journey where knowing the vocabulary like efferent versus efferent is not just academic.
It's the difference between success and total failure. If you go down that efferent limb, you're lost. You will never find the liver.
So we've covered the surgery, the challenge, the journey. I feel like I've taken a trip through the GI tract just talking about it.
It is quite a ride.
It really highlights the ingenuity involved, though, both in the original surgery.
Absolutely. Think about the creativity it took to even come up with this. Well, the main pipe is broken. Let's just, grab a piece of intestine and sew it up there.
It sounds so wild when you put it like that.
It is wild, but it works. It saves lives. And then you have the second layer of ingenuity required to figure out how to navigate that new creation years later.
So what's the big takeaway for someone listening who isn't a surgeon?
Well, there's a lesson here about systems. We tend to think systems, whether it's a human body or a traffic grid, have one normal state.
The default setting.
Right. But any intervention changes the whole system. When you fix one part, you change the map for everything that comes after.
The surgery is the intervention. The ERCP is the user trying to navigate the updated software.
Exactly. And you have to know the history of the updates to make it work. If you just assume it's the default setting, you'll hit a dead end. Literally.
Because the dead end was put there on purpose.
Precisely. You have to know the history to navigate the present.
It really is incredible. And before we wrap up, I just want to go back to that final moment, the dye injection.
The cholangiogram.
Just think about the level of precision. To inject a tiny stream of liquid into a pinhole opening at the end of a meter-long flexible tube inside a living, moving person after navigating a surgically altered maze.
It's humbling, really.
It is. It's a reminder that medicine is as much a skill of navigation and art as it is a science.
And it requires immense patience. The source says it's challenging, not impossible. It can be done.
But you have to know the roadmap.
You have to know the roadmap.
Well, I think we have successfully navigated this topic. I don't think we went down the efferent limb.
No, I think we found our way.
We've taken this incredibly complex term, broken it down, and driven the camera right to the destination.
Mission accomplished.
Hopefully the next time you hear a word like that, you don't just tune out. You can stop and think, okay, what's connected to what? And where does the plumbing go now?
Because there's always a logic to it, even if it's a rerouted logic.
Exactly. Thank you for taking this trip with us, deep inside the human body.
Always a pleasure to explore the map.
And our thanks to the source that provided the GPS for this journey, Dr. G.S. Raju's YouTube.